So with preseason coming up, I want to know what you'll be paying attention to. Just, maybe storylines you're looking for. Maybe it's a JB Bickerstaff rotation, or maybe it's a player that you're looking out for.
Something I'll be paying attention to this season. I think it's kind of like a broad topic in general, but I would say like just overall the attitude of this team. I think that's the number one thing that I'm going to be paying attention to this season, and it's primarily just because like I can say this. Okay, everybody has seen the Pistons the last few years, right? It's not been a winning product or anything really resembling a winning product. However, um, prior to last year, the thing you could always like hang your hat on with this team was like, the fighting spirit, the competitiveness, all that. Like even if they did lose a lot of games, like a lot of them were really close. But last year was, I think, the first year I can remember where it truly felt like everyone really like gave up, and that's saying a lot for having a season the year before where you won 17 games. But last season really felt like a lot of people gave up, and there was so much roster movement that like by the end of the season, the guys giving up weren't even on the team in like December, January. It was a completely different team. I'm really looking for an identity. That's the number one thing I'm looking for this year. I want to see the blueprint at the very least of what a winning Detroit Pistons basketball product looks like. I think JB has emphasized that since getting here, that he keeps repeating this phrase like when you tune in March or February, you can tune in on any given night and you're going to know that you're going to see a product that resembles what you think of when you think of Detroit Pistons basketball. Um, and I think that's not something to just like cough at, it's not something to just disregard because this team hasn't really had much of an identity in recent years, especially last year with the amount of things going on with, like Monty, with Troy, like just the roster and movement in general, and just like the losing streak taking on a life of its own. I think this year seeing a sort of attitude change where they come out looking hungry every game versus maybe the first 3-4 games of the season um is going to be a big thing. I really want to see this team do more than just be competitive most of the time. I want to see 4 quarters of consistent basketball, and I think that should be the goal.
Yeah, I think a lot of the points you made, like when Dwayne Casey was here, to your point, like they might have not won a whole lot of games after, they started rebuilding, quote unquote. But they were competitive for the most part. Like last year, I think they were competitive like during the Dan Burke era, which was like what, 4 games, and everyone
Yeah.
was like sky high. And after that, the shit hit the fan, and like no one was competitive. People weren't trying. And to your point, like last year, I think it kind of just scrambled a lot of people's brains because a lot of people last year were really high on the Pistons. They thought they could take a step, getting Monty Williams, all that stuff. I'm not gonna like go down memory lane, but
Right.
I honestly think that what I'm looking for this season is more of a consistent rotations. No more all bench units, please. And no more two big lineups. I've seen enough. Like those are the two things like I just don't want to see anymore.
Yeah, I think if you do see anything with a too big lineup, I think it's going to be two bigs that can stretch the floor. Looking at like a Paul Reed, Isaiah Stewart, combo off the bench. But I think probably, yeah, you're going to see a lot less of those minutes. But you never know. I mean, JB did use Evan Mobley and Jared Allen together for the last few years, so I can't rule it out. And honestly, okay, hot take about the two bigs thing. And I might become the least popular person in the comment section for this. So far, this is not me saying anything definitive. This is not even me saying anything negative. But so far, I feel the two bigs, the dog pound, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, have had a more positive impact and consistent impact on the Pistons than the Cade Ivey backcourt has so far. And that sounds crazy to say, but when Stewart and Duren are out there together, I think, yeah, you can chalk up problems in terms of spacing, absolutely. But interior defense, interior, like the interior presence, when they're on is like undeniable, right? I remember being very impressed when they first started rolling out those lineups. I think Casey's last year. I think it was mostly in the second half of the season. I didn't honestly ever really have that big of a problem with the two bigs. I think it was what they surrounded them with, and how it was used. Because like we saw with Cleveland, obviously not they're not Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, but that's not to say it can't work. I just think there wasn't a lot of offensive creativity and there wasn't a lot of consistency in how things were, done. And I think that's also part of the reason why Cade and Ivy haven't like popped as the backcourt that everyone, including myself, pegs them to be. I think they can, but I think it's just been a lack of creativity offensively through schemes thus far.
Yeah, that's definitely a take. I think my only issue with the two big lineups, and I think you do make some valid points, like a debate and an argument towards it, is my thing is there's not really a vocal leader on the defensive end where if I turn on a game, man, I don't hear anybody talking. There's no communication. Like I want Jalen Duren. I know this is something going off topic, and I love it. I want Jalen Duren to be a vocal like anchor. I want him to, call out, plays. I want him to say weak side, whatever. Like be that vocal leader this season, because when you do that, you're helping out the whole starting five, not just yourself. Like he's the last line of defense. That's something I want to see him do more this season.
Yeah, I think Duren, and I think I've said this before, but I really do think Duren taking that defensive leap is really the key to the Pistons unlocking whatever it is they want to achieve this season in terms of winning. Because if he's not your anchor defensively, in the paint, and around the basket, you have no hope really. Like everything kind of hinges on his progress and effort defensively, and being vocal is absolutely a part of that. And that's also something that I think has plagued the Pistons the last few years, is there's not a lot of talking. Like you can, as a person watching even on TV, you can see, there's not a lot of talking on the court. And I think that's something that JB, being a defensive minded coach, will come in and hopefully address. But I think assumptions with coaches I can't really do anymore.
Yeah.
after
No,
last year.
I'm
So
not gonna put you in that spot.